Distinguished guests, fellow Asian liberals and Democrats, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Never have we lived in a time as uncertain and precarious as the one we are going through right now. In the short span of a year, we have seen the global economy take a precipitous fall, and together with it, much of what we have come to accept as conventional wisdom. In such times, governments are anxious and nervous about the ramifications of populations facing extensive unemployment. In undemocratic societies, such anxiety could lead to greater repression. Even in democratic ones, political challenges may be unprecedented as we grapple with the economic meltdown. But as we tackle the questions of stimulus packages and financial reforms in this conference, let us also not forget the political impact of the crisis. In Asia, there is still a number of countries that continue to use the argument of economic development as a shield against political progress. These regimes insist that democracy, freedom, and human rights impede economic progress. Now that the global trade has slowed to a crawl and investments from industrialized economies have diminished, these autocratic regimes will find it increasingly difficult to continue to make the case that tight control is needed to ensure material prosperity. The most effective proponent of such a system has been the Singapore government. It has long used such spurious claims to justify its violations of human rights and to clamp down on democratic development in the country. But with Singapore's economy taking such a beating, so much so that we are the worst performing economy in Asia this year, such rhetoric from the government has of late been less shrill. And because countries like Burma and Vietnam look to the Singapore model, their situations too have become less predictable. In China, the government is also looking over its shoulders, even as it tries to stabilize the economy and create jobs for the tens of millions that have been rendered unemployed. And during such times, citizens will raise their heads and start to question the viability of autocratic systems. The political consequences cannot be underestimated. The last financial crisis toppled the strongest of the strong men in Southeast Asia. Suharto fell in the midst of a raging financial storm that devastated Indonesia's economy. In the process, a new nation emerged in the form of Timor-Leste. The crisis also kindled the flames of reformasi in Malaysia, which continued to burn years later and led to last year's political breakthrough in the country's general elections. Asian liberals and Democrats must be attuned, sensitized even, to signals of political restlessness. When pro-democracy forces emerge, CALD must respond by encouraging and supporting such efforts. Such an approach is an even more essential now that democratic governments are mired in their own economic concerns. In such circumstances, there is a tendency for the international community to place less emphasis on the advancement of democracy across the world. This is not to say that democratic systems will be free of the challenges that a financial crisis brings. How do elected governments deal with the economic and even political upheavals? How do democracies respond to the demands of the people? As you seek answers to these questions and more in this conference, it is worthwhile to remember that every crisis brings forth opportunities to advance democracy in this region that we cannot afford to miss. As in the past, I am unable to join you on this important occasion, as I am still banned from traveling outside of Singapore. But as always, I am with you in spirit and solidarity, and I wish this conference every success that it promises to be. Thank you, and God bless.